Hi, it's Sandy with Calvert Library, and I'm here to recommend one of my favorite biographies, a book that's called Empty Mansions. And the subtitle is The Mysterious Life of Huguette Clark and the Spending of a Great American Fortune. It is by Bill Dedman, who is a Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter, and Paul Clark Newell Jr. So I came across this completely by accident when I saw Bill Dedman on a late night talk show talking about how he stumbled on this story. And it turns out that he stumbled on the story just as accidentally. So he was looking for real estate. He was looking to move to the Connecticut area outside New York City with his family. And like many of us, he was getting a little depressed looking at the listings. He wasn't finding anything that he liked in his price range. So again, as many of us, he started to daydream and looking at the very top of the real estate listings. And when he did, he found a huge mansion listed for millions of dollars that had been listed for some time, but nobody lived there. So that piqued his curiosity. He is a reporter after all. So he began to do a little bit of investigating and found out that the property was owned by a woman named Huguette Clark. He went on to find out that she also owned a huge mansion overlooking the Pacific Ocean in Santa Barbara, California, and the better part of 2 floors in a Manhattan skyscraper that overlooks Central Park. But she didn't live in any of them. He went on to find out that some of these places were filled with amazing treasures. Everything from a dollhouse collection to an original Monet to a Stradivarius violin. So he had to investigate. Turns out that Huguette is the youngest daughter of W.A. Clark, one of the original robber barons in American history. At one time, Clark's fortune, mostly from copper mines, was comparable to Rockefeller's. This was a man who, a larger-than-life figure, who connected the railroad to a tiny little town in California called Los Angeles. He also owned all of the original property that became the Las Vegas Strip. He served in Congress. He was an amazing, huge figure in American history. And he had a daughter very late in life who turned out to be Huguette. So the history of the Clark family really ranges from the presidency of the 8th president, Van Buren, who was president when W.A. was born, to Huguette's death in 2011 at 104 years old, almost 105, during the Obama administration. So the history of the Clark family really is the history of this country. So that part of the book is absolutely fascinating, and you'll love to hear about W.A. and his adventures. The history then gives way to the intrigue of finding out what is happening with Huguette and why she doesn't live in any of these places. As it turns out, for the 20 years before she died, she lived in a tiny hospital room in Manhattan, cared for by a couple of lawyers and a caretaker, most of whom she never saw face to face, and very little else, even though she had all of this property. And it gives way to the intrigue of a legal drama over the Clark estate and the millions of dollars that it's worth, with family members, including the co-author, Paul Clark Newell, who was the nephew of Huguette, and other various distant family members on one side, and then lawyers and caretakers on the other. So I highly, highly recommend this book. It is a biography, but it is so very readable, and I think that you will really, really enjoy the story. And if you'd like a little taste of it, then I recommend listening to the new podcast from Calvert Library that's called Book Bites for Adults. In this podcast, various librarians will read the first chapter of some of their favorite books so that you can get a little taste of them and find out if you'd like to explore them more. And all of the choices that we make on Book Bites are available digitally through Calvert Library's collection, as well as hard copies that you can check out too. So please check out Empty Mansions and check out Book Bites for Adults wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to follow or to subscribe. Thanks so much. Stay tuned to Calvert Library social media for more librarian recommendations. Thanks. Bye-bye.